Podcast fam, Wyatt's Coffee and Resident Coffee Roasters are companies that operate out of a desire to serve and highlight Gainesville. Gabe Chavez purchased Wyatt's Coffee from Stephen Damari last year and decided to double down on the two things that excite him the most, serving incredible coffee and creating remarkable experiences. This led him into a journey of refining Wyatt's guest experience and asking the never-ending question, what else can we do? Gabe met Noe and learned about his love for Gainesville, his coffee roasting industry experience, and his drive to create. In an instant connection, they developed a plan, drafted an owner's agreement, and got to work. Resident Coffee opened its online doors a couple of months ago, and they're shipping coffee around the United States and providing several businesses with coffee and training locally. And in today's episode, my favorite thing happened. We drank coffee and we talked coffee notes. We hear about Gabe's purchase of Wyatt's Coffee, partnerships and deciding whether or not it's right for you, training your palate, instilling values of creating an incredible experience within your team, and pivoting that experience during a time of COVID. Enjoy today's episode. You are listening to WHOA Podcast, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WHOA GNV Podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa. Gotta work on like our harmony a little bit.
I didn't know we were doing that.
I don't know. I am your host, Collin, and my co-host is Michael D.
What's going on, man? It's the most wonderful time of the year.
I'm just so excited. 2021 is almost there.
I think everyone's like really excited for Christmas this year just because like it means that 2021 is on the horizon.
You know, so a trend, something I noticed was that as soon as Halloween was over this year, like Christmas trees were up like the next day.
Like,
it was just like
putting it fast forward.
Yeah. So we just want to get there quicker. So anything to get to 2021 faster will be
right.
Let's go.
If you build it, they will come, right?
Yeah.
But on that note, if you're doing some last minute Christmas shopping, you're searching for that perfect gift, why don't you get one of these shirts? You can get them on our website. This was from our collaboration with Carolyn Staniski. You can get these awesome Gainesville threads. You can get our GNV shirts on our website. You can find some coffee mugs, some stickers. There's all kinds of swag you can get for your favorite GNV listener, subscriber. Awesome gifts. They make awesome stocking stuffers. There's all kinds of things you can do, all the kinds of things you can buy to support our podcast.
That's right, man. All the money goes to building the show.
It goes to helping do this for another year, hopefully.
So get your swag for Christmas, y'all. Let's go. And just a reminder, too, I want to let everybody know that the year is coming to an end quickly, and WHOA GNV is going ahead and planning for 2021 sponsorships. I know all of you guys who have businesses, you're like, right now is the time, you know, November and December is like the time where everybody's kind of getting their budget ready for 2021. We're all trying to like, okay, what's 2021 going to look like? But I know you have your marketing budgets and you want to get in front of business owners and business professionals. Well, guess what? There's no better way to do it than through this podcast, baby. Right. So reach out to me at Collin, Collin, at repaintthewall.com for more information. I'll send it all over to you. And we would love to have your support as we go into 2021 and just keep this show going. You can support our podcast and get advertising into the most epic of audiences.
It's a true win-win.
Yeah, right? So again, reach out to me, Collin, at repaintthewall.com. We really, really appreciate all y'all's support. And now it's time for some coffee, baby.
You can smell it. You can smell how good this episode's going to be.
Good in here, you guys. It smells so good. You guys, today on the show, we have Gabriel Chavez and Noe Lopez of Resident Coffee Roasters, a coffee roasting company founded right here in Gainesville, Florida, baby. Guys, what's up?
What's up?
What's going on?
So, I know we said, well, all right, we always like to start with a story and stuff, but you guys brought goods.
That's right.
This is like, this is like the best when people bring in the goods. So, you want to go ahead and prep this and make this and tell us what you're making and let us get a little sample, and that way we're really wired up for this episode?
Heck yeah. So, while Noe's grabbing everything to make some coffee for you guys, I think it'd probably be pretty important to let you know that we're actually not going to tell you what we're brewing for you guys. What we want to do is that we want to actually have you guys taste it and then recognize some of the things that you're tasting and just let us know what you think. And then we're going to compare notes and we're going to figure out, what exactly were you guys tasting? Is it close to, what what you were supposed to be tasting. And so Noe here is brewing a pour over coffee. And it is a fun, wild 3 minutes of brewing. And so, Noe, what are you doing here?
So right now we're just prepping the bed of coffee. We're blooming it, getting it all nice and saturated.
Nice.
So
And it looks delicious.
What temperature water do we have here?
No, he can't get to a microphone. I believe Noe's brewing at 207, and we're probably doing our shop recipe for sharing coffee, so it's probably about 30 grams of coffee, and I believe 500 grams of water. And so what you guys are about to experience is going to be like a really great balanced cup, but I'm really curious to know if like this experience specifically correlates to any other coffee that you've had, because we brought something a little bit special to the show today. I guess while we're brewing, I'll take over your show a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you describe to me
This makes my job way easier, by the way.
I guess, Collin, can you describe to me a little bit about like what your most remarkable coffee experience was? And mind you, that could be anything. You don't have to sit here and nerd out and tell me about yada, yada, yada type of coffee. Like
If you won't, I can. I promise.
What comes to mind when I say like coffee and remarkable experience? I know you're all about experiences, man. So,
Well, I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if this is the time to bring it up, but I had a coffee business once.
oh, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
And it was a company called Gulejo.
Yeah.
And me and a couple partners were in this company, and we were importing coffee beans from Nicaragua.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like the part that I missed the most about the business is the coffee. It was like so delicious.
Were you guys roasting it yourselves? Or?
We were, but we were working with local. Like we didn't have a roasting machine. We had we worked with local roasters.
Gotcha.
Who did it for us. But man, it was just the experience part of it for me was like right when it's roasted. Like freshly roasted coffee and then grinding it, that smell. I mean, like the smell, I know you're joking, like, oh man, I haven't even tasted it yet. Like the smell in this room, you guys, that's like part of the experience right there. It's just so rich and so good. But man, I just miss that like fresh coffee.
The smell filling the room.
Yeah, and like I mean, for me, like that medium roast is like what I prefer. We used to have one that was kind of a little bit lighter. It was called aged, and I didn't prefer it as much as I did the others. But man, that medium roast was like solid. But no, it's just that is the experience for me. Is just the freshness of it.
So the smell, the sensory stuff.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, the sensory stuff is what we geek out about as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's almost 100% part of our job when it comes to resident is just constantly tasting and making sure everything is the way that it should be. I think for me, like when I think remarkable coffee experience, it comes down to like the people and the location. Like kind of cheesy, but my wife and I fell in love in a coffee shop. We're both students at UF, and I was getting my education degree. She was in the College of Agriculture for Family, Youth, and Community Sciences, and we both just started spending time and day after day after day after day until one point we both looked at each other and were like, what are we even doing here? And so I totally feel you when you say sensory stuff. It's just like the smell that fills the air, the familiarity, that to be around with each other and stuff like that. But I think Noe just finished brewing the coffee here.
Nice.
And so let me get some...
Get your fancy
mugs.
WHOA GNV podcast mug available at WHOAGNV.com.
And while he's doing that, I got some pieces of paper for you guys. And so you don't have to actually write on them, but I figured might as well. So basically, this has a list of about 20 flavor notes that you can find in coffee. And what I'd like for you to do is taste your sample. Of course, wait for it to cool down a little bit. Don't burn your tongue. And then find 3 things in that list that this might remind you of. And then, of course, if it reminds you of anything else, I'd love to hear about it as well.
Okay.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah, Mike is gonna. I feel like Mike will be really good.
I'll
at this.
probably fail, but I'm excited.
There's no failing.
There's no failing. I
Did you
like
get
that kind of
some,
test.
Sarah?
I'm not a huge coffee.
Oh, you're not? Oh, I got you.
Well, you're about to be.
Okay, Okay, so for everybody who's listening, we're just like smelling and getting ready.
This is
to
the
sip.
sniffing
This is-
part.
This is the boring part for you guys.
I also probably need to get
skip
the taste
15
of-
seconds. Skip 15
swamp
seconds
head
in your
big
audio.
nose out of my mouth, but
Yeah, right.
right. Need
What's
to-
that
Does
sound
this have
trend
a
that's
sample?
going around?
Oh, what is it called? I know exactly what you're talking about.
SM something?
Yeah.
SMO?
Somebody,
What is it?
you know, where you're really like into like the sounds that things make.
ASMR.
ASMR.
Yeah.
I knew
Yes.
somebody would be there.
Like when it's crunchy.
James, but I need you to help me on my cheat sheet here. Because I feel like all I get is rum and coke in mine, and and that's
You
definitely
got
not
it.
what's in it.
That's what it is.
It's actually not coffee.
Sorry, it's because of what I've been having a little cocktail before we recorded. And okay,
I'm gonna take this way too seriously.
yeah, I feel like I'm
Fogging up my
like
glasses.
terrible
I'm
at
just
that. I
taking
mean,
the
this
aroma.
is delicious, but I could not tell you like the notes. I mean, as terrible as that is, but I'm pretty sure it's just because I've been eating chicken sandwiches and and you know, having a little cocktail beforehand. So Mike, tell us, please. Well, you're
Well,
expert.
I was just,
you're expert.
yeah, I'm not there yet, but I was going to have a comment on it because I think the relationship with coffee, the experience with coffee, is an interesting thing to talk about. You're someone, and tell me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to mischaracter, but you're always on the go, right? And so your relationship with coffee is probably more functionality, getting that caffeine boost for productivity and stuff, where you're just downing it and going on with your day. Now, I know you like coffee and you like your drinks and everything, but there's a difference between that and your, Saturday morning reading the newspaper, enjoying your cup of coffee, and really just kind of, experiencing it type of drinker, which I am sometimes and I'm not a lot of times, but just commentary there. 'Cause I
Right.
think a lot of people do in the hustling, the entrepreneurial community. Like, we have that like go, you down it, you move on, and I wonder how many people are actually like savoring, to actually kind of just throwing that out there. I don't know. As much.
Yeah,
what I got
I'm
here.
definitely the functional. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I love it. So it's the setting, right? It kind of goes back to what
Yeah,
you're
I
saying.
think it
For me,
varies.
it varies. Like definitely during this time of business and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's functionality. It's like, let me get my caffeine and let me get to work. Let's go. Let's crush the day. But I definitely start my morning with coffee every single day. I love coffee. But man, those like vacation moments when you're
Yeah.
like chilling on the back porch of some cabin, or like just on, I don't know, just or maybe even looking over the beach, chilled out. Like that's the savory moments, right? That's
Yeah.
like I'm gonna sip this and enjoy this experience.
I brewed one of these at a rest stop one time.
I feel like that's hardcore. I like it.
Is this like an electric kettle or like a plug-in cigarette lighter?
Yeah,
kinda?
you plugged in right next to the soda machine.
Okay.
Made a fire at the rest station. Slowly heated the
outstanding.
kettle up.
That's outstanding.
So-
All right, I've got my 3.
All right.
But you have your 3?
No, I'm not gonna.
Come on. Fail miserably. Fail proudly.
Fail miserably. That's
Okay.
exactly.
Well, while
Absolutely.
you're doing yours, I'll get mine.
All right.
I gotta like.
So there are way too many choices, and I suspect that none of these are going to be correct. But I circled whiskey, woody, and tobacco. That was clearly wrong.
Is it? I mean, I
Currently sipping on whiskey. so
don't pick those 3.
I know, but I definitely get the woody aspect to it. I would say chocolate, brown sugar, and woody.
2 woodies.
I mean, just like us.
That's our next business name.
2 woodies right next to each other. James, what do you think, man?
I had the exact same as Mike's.
Really?
Wow.
The exact same? Like you could circle that? Show
point.
me. Don't lie.
Well, I don't
Oh, you don't have a pin. Okay.
Does this remind you of any other coffee that you've had, or like any other like experience that you've had with a cup of coffee? Does it bring you back anywhere when you sip on it besides just like general coffee?
I wouldn't say so. I would say that it's unique. Yeah, like it doesn't. Flavors do have that knack of. Sorry, I'm leaning back as I'm sitting here sipping my. They have that knack to transplant you somewhere, and I don't want to say by not getting that it's, a commentary on anything, but just the fact that I feel like it's a unique taste that kind of is different on its own leg.
Are you anywhere where I am right now? Where am I? No. I feel like I want to be taken back somewhere right now, but I'm not getting there. So why don't you help me get there quicker?
Well, it's very good.
Heck yeah. I mean, that's the first step. That's the first step is that it's good. It should be a balanced cup. Should be something that doesn't taste bitter. Or I think my least favorite thing whenever you drink a cup of coffee is astringency. When you sip on something and it immediately dries your mouth out. It's the worst feeling in the world. And so I'm glad that you guys got a chance to experience a balanced cup. Your bag notes or flavor notes per se are definitely going to be a little bit different than what we ended up cupping on this coffee. This is actually our newest coffee offering. It's an Ethiopian coffee, and this is a gift for you guys. And so this coffee...
With the sticky note and everything.
Love it.
When we cupped this coffee, we tasted nectarine, we tasted Earl Grey tea, and we tasted honey. Now, mind you, we've been tasting coffee for a long, long time.
It's been a long time since I got an F. It's a complete failure.
And so when we're tasting coffee specifically to get into
If I go like this. Yep. So you guys should check that out. Look, I love the packaging too, guys.
Thank you. We hired, his name is Shelton Seraphim from Issue 91. He's a designer here in town. Amazing work. But yeah, so when we taste coffee, we're tasting coffee to pinpoint specific notes and kind of find uniqueness between all of the coffees that taste, coffee-like.
So it's funny because I am probably more of a hot tea drinker these days, and there was part of me, and I will fail miserably on it, but there was part of me that was like, there's Earl Grey. Like I got that a little bit, but ultimately I kind of talked myself out of it, maybe picked something else up and went in a different way. But I did kind of have that for a little while, so I feel a little vindicated. I was never going to get nectarine and honey.
Yeah. You always got to go with your first gut reaction.
Right. I learned that once again.
So indecisive.
Right. Well,
So guys, this is a lot of fun. Our listening audience is probably like, all right, get on with the show. So let's talk a little bit about story. So we had Stephen DeMari on the show.
Yes, you did.
And this is when he was the owner of Hippo, and he still is, right? Hippo and Wyatt's. And so you bought it from him, right? Wyatt's. And now you're in this new venture.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about the story, how you guys connected, how that whole thing went down when you bought that from Steven, because he's a great guy.
Depends how far back you want to go.
Yeah. Third grade works. Whatever. Yeah. It doesn't matter to me.
Mrs. Hill's class was a nightmare. So Steven and I met way back. We met before the Wyatt's concept even opened at all. Wyatt's originally opened in 2016 in Midtown. We had they opened an little tiny 8-seater shop, and I think the reason why I'm using the we verbiage is of course because now I own it, but then outside of that, that's actually when I met him. One of my friends was working for him, and I was asked to help build that shop out, and so I sitting there laying tile on on everything, setting up crown molding and all of that, knowing nothing about coffee. And then as the shop started getting set up, I started learning a little bit here and there, but I was someone that was unemployed. I was technically employed by Steven at the time, helping him build the shop. But I have a degree in education. And so I was like, what am I sitting here? Like, I'm working a barista job. I should be doing something else. And so I like delved into the world of education, left coffee altogether for a while. And then I got a call again in 2018, and he was like, hey, so first shop didn't work out. Bad location. Midtown it can be a really great area, but it can also be a not so great area. It's really tough to get parking, and it's hard to keep doors open. And so he basically called me. It's like, we're opening a second location. We're opening in downtown where Mochi used to be. You and I got a chance to talk for a little bit. I got to see you're passionate about coffee. I want you to be the GM of that store. And I was teaching third grade at the time. And I got off the phone with Steven and looked at my wife and I was like, what in the world? Like, this would be the craziest move. But like, this part of me, like way, way, way in the back of my mind was like, I love business. I love this idea of entrepreneurship. To go way, way back even more, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Ecuador, and coming to the United States, there was always this idea of like, let's do something, let's start something new. And so this idea of getting involved in like a brand new project was super, super alluring to me. And so I took a leap of faith. It was the end of the year. I said goodbye to my students, and I became the GM over at Wyatt's, and over the first 2 years started working to transform what was kind of a very basic baseline mission of what coffee service could be into what I consider now to be like one of the best coffee experiences that you have in Gainesville. And then in August of last year, a little before August of last year, Steven sat down with me, and he like sat me down in his office, and he asked me to close the door behind him. I'm like, oh shoot. Like,
What's happening?
That's never fun.
I either did something, or I'm about to get fired, or they're going to tell me that this store also didn't do well, even though I knew that it was going well. And but he sat down and basically described to me this image of where he wants his company to go. He, as you know, is crushing the popsicle and ice cream game, and he wanted his company to be hyper focused on those specific things. And for that reason, he was like, well, Gabe, I want to divest Wyatt's, and I want to offer it to you first. And it was one of those like super humbling, like sovereignty of God moments where you're like, whoa, what? Like, I didn't get into this with this expectation. I got into this to learn about business, to learn about managing people, to learn about leadership. I'm passionate about coffee, so I wanted to learn about that. What in the world? And so my wife and I took about a month. Basically the decision was, do we want to stay in Gainesville? Because this is a long-term commitment, right? We're going to be owning a business here. And we took the big first step, and we said yes, and raised some basic working capital, and signed the papers and started going. And so a little bit before the kind of that signing date where we officially like purchased Wyatt's and started operating it as ourselves, I had met Noe at, this is going to sound funny, at a latte art competition. You guys know what latte art is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm there.
Okay, wonderful. So basically, you pour steamed milk over espresso, make a beautiful pattern. Whoever makes the prettier pattern wins, right?
How many people compete in this?
It totally depends. There's some that are
That night
packed
was like
out.
25 to 30.
Really?
Yeah, and it was sold out
Dang.
pretty early on.
What?
Yeah.
I had a friend that went to Japan to do this.
This is crazy.
Yeah, no, it's super, super nuts. And so this was at a cafe here in town, and we. It was a big event. Everything was popping, lots of music going on. I was looking around the room, and I've been in the coffee industry here for a bit, so I recognize almost everybody. I know everybody that works at all the coffee shops. Everyone's super excited to be there. My baristas are there, super stoked to see what happens. And I see this guy, and I'm like, who in the world is that? He has a baby, a wife. I think your wife was pregnant at the time, right?
I think so.
Yeah, Elizabeth was pregnant at the time, and I was
Was
like,
he like your competition?
well, at first I didn't even know
It's
who
like
he
bracket
was.
style.
And so first round happens, I make it through. Second round happened. Well, second round, I look over and it's this weird guy, and I'm like, it's Noe, and I'm like, wait, what? Who? I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea how long he'd been in coffee. I had no idea what was happening. But in my head, I'm like, this is no problem. I'm the general manager of like a coffee shop here in town. I do all the training for everybody. Like, this is no problem. You do a thing, you pour your latte, you put it down, you look up, and I look over at his, I'm like, whoa, completely like destroyed me. It was a unanimous vote. 3 votes went to him, none to
Dang.
me. I lost. No, he continued, but, I immediately sparked a curiosity with like, who the heck is this guy? So I went home, followed him on social media, find out that he had been working at coffee for years, and found out that he was roasting coffee at home as well. So I reached out and I was like, hey dude, you're roasting coffee at home. Like, do you ever want to make this a business? And he was like, yeah, I have this whole project. It's called Resident Coffee. We're thinking about going off the ground at this date. I was like, that's fantastic. I want to represent y'all at Wyatt's. Like, let's meet up at some time. And then nothing ever happens. As a lot of these conversations happen, like nothing ever happens. And then a little while later, I reach back out and basically we just start hanging out and we start meeting and we start tasting coffee together. And this crazy idea happens of like, hey, what if we just start Resident together? I have a store that sells coffee in pretty high volume. You have the talent and the skills and all of the necessary abilities to make this happen really, really well. It's like, why don't you just join me on this journey? And that's kind of where we started. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot that I left out, but
yeah. I mean, so if we want to go over my background. That's totally
I mean,
cool.
like, keep going.
Sure. So basically, I got my start in Dallas. I lived there all my life, and I too met my wife at a coffee shop. She literally walked through the door, and I was the first person she saw, and so made the connection, and things started.
She's
going.
looking at you. She's like, Noe latte. Yeah. How do I choose?
But so I got my start in Dallas. Worked at a couple different cafes. Got my start at Starbucks. I feel like that kind of laid down a good foundation as far as like work ethic. And from there, sparked my interest in coffee and began to work my way through different cafes, ending up at a specialty coffee roaster in Dallas, and worked for them for quite a bit. Helped them kind of see through multiple different locations, openings, and managed their coffee roasting program for about 4 years. So throughout that time, I really came to just really love everything about coffee. I mean, I learned as much as I could about brewing, espresso, customer service, roasting, any sort of logistics on the side of like delivery and packaging, making sure that everything went perfectly for them, and then trying to figure out like anything else that I could possibly do. So I was with them for about 4 years, and gaining on the last year, just things began to be pretty difficult to live there with a family and a young kid. As far as this, just pretty expensive. Rent kept going up on us, and my wife's family is here in Gainesville actually, and she grew up here. So for lots of different reasons, we ended up moving here to Gainesville about 4 years ago, pretty close to 4 years ago. And I took up an insurance job, and so I was working in insurance for quite a bit until this past August, which is super, super strange compared to like working only coffee jobs. But I think it humbled me a lot. It gave me a different perspective on work and what that means, and taught me different things. But throughout that time, basically, I still had the same dream of pursuing coffee in a different way. So what that looked like was I began to research what it would take to start a coffee roasting company here. I had been to all the coffee shops locally, and tried all the coffees that there were to offer, and just I didn't feel like there was something that I could feel at home with. And so I figured I would start it. So I purchased a small roaster and kind of figured out what I can do to make that happen. So I don't know if you remember, but maybe a couple years ago you might have seen like little like brown like Resident bags going around. I had like a small like a subscription going on, and would deliver to homes and drop off bags of coffee. So that was going well, but it was not nearly enough to sustain me, or it was also pretty difficult to get it off the ground with a newborn and family and stuff like that, and also working a full-time job. So kind of around maybe a year and a half ago, that's when I met Gabe at the Throwdown. And
you destroyed him.
I'm curious though, like my perspective of you, just strictly that night, when you stood up next to me, it was like, who is this guy? No idea who you are. What was your perspective? Do you remember? Was I memorable at all?
It's like, who is this? Who is this goofball?
Who is
I'm
this
about
goober,
to destroy your face. Let's go. Is that what you were thinking?
He was just
I
an
think
assassin mindset.
I think I had seen Gabe before at some point. I don't remember.
Did you know who he
where.
was?
No, I don't
You
think I
didn't
knew
know? Okay.
who he was at the time.
Not memorable.
And yeah, I didn't.
Now, was this when you guys met up? Was this the first round of the bracket, or had you both advanced?
We had both advanced. This
Okay.
was the second
Yeah,
round.
I think it was the second
Yeah,
round.
that was second round.
But yeah, after the throwdown, we connected. I think it was either through social media or texting or some kind. But we hung out a couple times and just kind of started throwing around the idea of like, how could we possibly make this happen? Because he had seen my resident stuff before, and he had tasted. I had given him coffee to taste for my home roasting stuff. Mind you, I had been roasting for 4 years beforehand in Dallas already, and kind of had like a good idea of what it takes to make this happen. But I had been in a different position where I didn't know the whole business owner side of it. I had just been an employee. Looking back, I wish I would have asked more questions as far as like green purchasing, selling and sales, making accounts and building relationships and such like that. Yeah, we started hanging out a couple times, and after a while, I think the ball started rolling, and it became more apparent that it seemed like we had comparable strengths to each other, as far as like Gabe had the whole business side of things down, and I had more of the skill set necessary to get the roasting off the ground, and as far as getting all the coffee quality under control.
And then to like be super specific about that, he's talking about like sourcing green coffee, sampling and tasting. I mean, mind you, before the selections that we have on our menu today, you know, at Resident, we probably sampled through like 50 to 60 samples. And I mean, these are just, I would say that's about right, 50 to 60 samples for the selections that we have about right now.
Yeah,
And we only have 5 coffees on the menu right now. And so there's tons of sampling, there's tons of quality checking, roast profiling, and then tasting and tasting and tasting and tasting, all of which I had no idea how to do. There was this crazy idea in my head where I was like, okay, well, Wyatt's is doing great, but as you know, like you need to diversify your business. You need to diversify your revenue streams. And I always had this like, roasting is the place where we need to be, but I never knew how to do it. I never knew even how to start, even how to take the first step. And that's 100% where Noe came in.
I have so many questions.
I was gonna say, if you've ever listened to this podcast before, you know that Collin has all these business questions, and I want to talk about coffee for a little bit. So I'm gonna let you go first.
Yeah, let's talk about
I'll
the
let you go
business
first.
questions. Well, actually, I want to ask one question about the competition, like with the art and stuff. Like, are we talking like you can like make a scooter like with the foam type thing, or like how detailed is the?
I mean, I
the
could
art?
try, but it's mainly about how it's poured and how the milk interacts with the espresso and the crema, and how it's dispersed, how the espresso is dispersed by the milk to create a design.
Right.
So you're not drawing per se.
No, I get that.
You're pouring, the milk pouring is what's creating the design. But I mean, it's pretty intricate.
Yeah.
It's pretty intricate.
I mean, I've seen scooters on it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if it was just done in
Trying to do
Photoshop
a
or.
collaboration beverage.
There are 3D printers.
Use scooters for Lex.
There are.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they make 3D printers. It's pretty cool.
Talk to me about pulling that trigger of getting into a partnership.
Sure.
And one of my favorite podcasters, Dave Ramsey,
Yes.
says the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership.
Yeah.
And, and like partnerships are tough. Like I've been in them. So I mean, but I also like love them. I'm also in one. So I mean, we have one with a repaint. So getting to that point where you're like, okay, like let's do this. like what was that conversation like? What did each of you guys bring to the table? You know, is it 50-50? Is it like you brought like from it had to be an investment standpoint? Was there money? Like, do you need money? Do you need me to give you guys money and be a partner in this? Like, like where are you guys at now? And with all of that kind of coming together, can you kind of explain that process?
Yeah,
'Cause
sure.
I think it's super valuable to our audience who might be considering getting into a partnership.
Absolutely. Almost every piece of advice that mentors gave me, like coming into all of this, was avoid partnerships altogether, which is kind of funny because that's one of the first things that I did. But I guess we'll learn. But
It's like when the waiter says, "Careful, this plate's hot," and the first thing you do is touch it. Yeah.
yeah, no, I feel you.
Partnership, sign me up.
So the reality is, I mean, approaching the conversation, I think we were both very skeptical. I think that's the beginning of it. We were both very skeptical about the idea of potentially partnering, of what a financial or a business partnership would look like. I mean, to be frank, I don't think you and I ever discussed this, but for a little bit there, I was like racking my bank and trying to figure out if I could hire you as an employee first. And it was just like, sure, I could, but will it provide, like, will we have the synergy and the values needed to be able to really launch this thing off the ground? And so we, over the course of, I mean, it probably ended up being like 6 months and meeting like probably like once a week at least, or once every other week, we began talking about what this would be like. And it really came down to not just percentages and not just money involved or anything like that. I guess I would say the first 3 months of it all was just aligning values, just making sure that we were both on the same page, making sure that we would both think the same way when it came to critical business decisions, approach things similarly, had the same worldview when it comes to let's just be frank, taking care of people, taking care, ethically forming business partnerships, ethically purchasing coffee. Yeah, that's a really big one. So 3 solid months of, I mean, you can put it in a funny way. One of our coffee importers, he looks at both of us and he's like, cherish your relationship, and he almost talks about it like a marriage, because in some ways business partnerships can be like marriages. You're looking out for one another.
100%.
You're looking out for one another. You're caring for one another. You're getting to know each other. And so, I mean, for 3 months, we were just dating. We were courting each other, kind of figuring out, like, is this something that even has a possibility of working? Within those 3 months, we started talking about what potential deals could look like. And I came up with a pretty creative solution that allowed us to kind of get a big jump start with the company, and then allowed Noe to be able to do what he needed to do with the assets that he had. And if you want to explain that a little bit more.
Yeah. So kind of going back a tiny bit, we definitely, over that course of time, well, first off, when we first started to meet, I think immediately we both had the sense of, okay, we agree on the same coffee philosophies. Like we both understand, have a good understanding of what we both want for coffee, and experience, community, and customer service, but also care for our employees and just general care for people. So I thought that first time that we hung out and kind of talked about those things, I felt a sense of relief and understanding, because I had before then, over the course of like 2 years, I had already been kind of dreaming up this idea and trying to find a way to get it off the ground. I had already spoken to a couple different VCs and tried to get the funding, but they all fell through, or some of them were close, but ended up not being a right fit. And just going back to that kind of gut feeling, just didn't feel like it was going to be beneficial for me or a right fit as far as, like Gabe said, like worldview and how we treat people and stuff like that. But as far as the partnership deal, we definitely had tons of different ideas over the course of those couple months. And it was really difficult because I was also working full time at the time, and I didn't have a lot of money to put towards like a buy-in deal either. And so basically, to keep it simple, we basically ended up on doing kind of like a mix of like sweat equity, yeah, that's pretty much it. Sweat equity and some funds.
Absolutely. And so it's been a blessing because getting off the ground on anything is incredibly difficult. And specifically, like, I mean, I haven't specifically been in those shoes, but like for Noe, being in the position of, having 2 kids and a wife to take care of at home, and being in the situation where it's like, okay, well, quitting a job to go into unknown is like, it's a big deal. And so creating the structure that we did kind of provided security for the launch of such a crazy ordeal, and allowed us to reduce a lot of our like overhead costs. But then also is providing him the ability to also purchase into the company. And so to be completely transparent and clear, like, Noe is going to become a part owner. Noe is a part owner of Wyatt's and Resident. We're running both companies under the same umbrella.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, you want to do your?
I was gonna say, did you get your? All right, so
I got plenty.
Yeah,
but,
no, I have some coffee questions because
Sure.
this is usually the way our podcast. If you ever listen to our podcast, this is the way it goes. It's Collin wants to talk about the business, which is great. I like to talk about what you do. The first thing I'm concerned with right away is how do I ace this test, right? So do you guys do cuppings? Do you like
Yeah.
teach people how to taste these like notes and everything? And
Yeah,
what is that like?
absolutely.
When can we do that?
Yeah. So before you go, to be honest with you guys, I 100% believe that the reason why y'all tasted what you tasted is because the cups were dirty. There was like a very strong. I don't know if it wasn't like
watched
a.
them.
It wasn't a dirty smell. It was no. And I don't mean to rip
What are you
you.
saying?
Listen, you washed them. That's totally okay. But they did not dry correctly. Some maybe a little bit of water. There was like before we poured any coffee. I don't know if you noticed, but I was like sniffing cups, and that was the first thing I noticed.
Nah, if I noticed that, I probably thought you were really weird. But
No. Fair enough. There was like a strong musk in all the cups, and musk typically like is transformed when you smell it as like woody notes, earthy notes, and so a lot of what kind of came through for you guys, to be honest, was probably I don't want to say. Listen, I don't want to say.
what are you drinking right now?
No, just kidding.
What are you drinking right now?
Yeah,
outside of coffee. No, I mean like
a cocktail, rum and coke.
Yeah, okay, so you got rum and coke. So I immediately like circled. I've got some Swamp Head Big Nose local here, but I immediately circled around and said, hops, malt, yeast, and water, and I almost circled malt too.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking about what is on my you talked about a palate cleanse or something, and
Absolutely,
we didn't have
sparkling
that,
water is your best palate cleanser. We did not come prepared.
Yeah.
So like I typically run into our cuppings for Resident or even for Wyatt's right after having lunch. And it's the worst because unless you're properly cleaning your mouth out, like you have all of lunch sitting on your palate,
right.
And when you slurp on that coffee, it's like you're tasting the ham that was in your sandwich earlier, or the drink that you had with it, or whatever
Totally
it is.
me.
And so, funny enough, like people that like go into competition for cupping and all of that, they often starve their palates. Like they're choosing not to eat or drink like sweet or spicy or like seasoned things, so that they could properly taste what's in the cup, and that's really nerdy.
Some
Yeah, it
intense.
sounds
That's
miserable, but
really,
also
really
sounds
nerdy.
awesome. Like I kind of like it.
It's like that. Those are like the hyper focused
Yeah.
people. Like they're like on it.
But to answer your question, yes.
I feel like you should be in that
do-
competition. I could totally see you in that competition. Yeah.
Let's go, me and you.
Yeah, I mean, so you guys do cuppings. When do you do them?
Well, we do mainly for quality control, for tasting new coffees, and then for educating staff. I guess once everyone feels comfortable
Sure.
sharing cups again, we could do public cuppings if that's cool.
Yeah, no public cuppings right now.
Right. No,
I think no one's doing public cuppings right now.
So, but
There's a lot of slurping.
So walk me through it. Like, so as you do it for your trainings, like how does that look? I mean, do you have them like, take this coffee, right, that has notes of nectarine, honey, and Earl Grey? Do you have them eat a nectarine, drink some honey, drink some Earl Grey, and then try to find it? And they got like, what does that look like? I'm just throwing a dart out there. But.
No, typically it's a pretty quiet process. Mainly you don't want to influence anyone's thoughts or perception of the coffee. So it's a pretty quiet process, and then everything is discussed afterwards. So just because you tasted woody or malty or whatever you tasted doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong. It just means that your palate's different, and maybe you had something that was causing you to taste that differently.
But there is a right answer. Generally?
There could,
So funny enough, like basically the goal of training when it comes to like a barista, one of the goals of training is palate alignment. We want everyone to recognize, like if I recognize a nectarine note, we want everyone in the room to recognize a nectarine note. And we recognize that everyone's palates are differently, so we have to approach that differently with everybody. The way everyone tastes sweetness is differently. The way everyone tastes, savory qualities of something is different. And so like you were saying about eating nectarines and actually drinking Earl Grey, well, those aren't things that we do per se in a cupping. Those are great tools to be able to hone in on
Right, so how do you
stuff.
train your palate to pick up those notes is really...
Eating and drinking a lot of different stuff. But specifically, if you're talking about cupping, drink a lot of coffee. Just comes down to that. Drink a lot of coffee.
Okay. So what kind of technique did we use here today?
Well, this is called a Kalita. It's a pretty nice pour over method. It just has a flat bottom, and it has tiny little holes here to allow the coffee to flow through. It uses a fairly thick paper filter, so it gets a lot of sediment out, resulting in a pretty clean, crisp cup.
And so what are the advantages of that? And you talked about prepping the filter and everything. And so walk me through that in a layman's way.
So what I was trying to do is keep this bed of coffee as level as possible throughout that time. And I was also trying to saturate all the grounds, making sure everything was properly saturated and off-gassing the right amount of time.
And so is that an advantage of this specific technique? And then tell me like why you would pick a certain technique. Like why would you pick this one versus an Italian press or a French press or anything like that?
Sure. I think this brew method, it's a favorite of mine. And like I said earlier, it's very crisp and clean, allowing us to pick up on those more specific notes. For instance, if you were to brew a French press, it could possibly come out a little bit more muddled or have more sediment in the cup, resulting in a little bit of a heavier coffee. And that might change your perception of the characteristics of the coffee.
So is there a time that you would opt for that technique over, say, this one?
Possibly. It depends on the type of coffee. Like if we purchased a coffee that was extremely chocolate forward or woody or had some of those like smoky characteristics, perhaps we would try something that was different, like a French press or an AeroPress. That's something that's full immersion, meaning that it's sitting in the water for steeping like a tea brewer for a duration time.
I'm sorry. Just thinking like these terms, man. Like I'm like thinking woody and fully submerged and like all these things. I'm like, you guys are getting way too ridiculous with this.
To put it,
I'm sitting here like, yeah, go on. I have an AeroPress. I have a French press.
Yeah,
like,
heck yeah. I mean, to be frank, like to put it super simply, like good coffee is coffee that you like. Right. And so like whatever your preference is, whatever your brewing preference is, right. Whatever it is that you really enjoy.
Right.
It's getting late tonight.
It's good coffee.
We've reached the after hours, after dark version of the World GNV podcast.
So this is going to get the PG-13 rating.
Yeah.
So how spoiled do you get, both of you, like whenever, you obsess over this, you nerd out over it, it's your profession. Like, what does a cup of coffee look like at home? And I'll ask a second a question of that. What are the common mistakes that the home coffee drinker is doing?
Oh man,
I can go first.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like you're more obsessive at home. I rarely drink coffee at home, and it's not because I don't like it, or it's not because of anything along those lines. It's mostly because first I'm in either the cafe or the roastery 6 days a week, most of the time 7 days a week. So most days I come home and I've already had plenty of coffee. But outside of that, on the days that I don't, and on the days that I'm like fully at home, it's not that I don't want to have any more coffee. It's that the caffeine is just like so oversaturated in me that I'm just like, I need a day to rest. But then outside of that, like, I am a full believer in the cafe experience. Like, I believe that there is something special when someone makes you a cup of coffee. You can make yourself a cup of coffee all day long. If you get an espresso machine, you can make yourself shots of espresso and learn how to dial them in and take the time with that. But there's something magical about walking up to a bar, asking for a good cup of coffee, and then, or a shot of espresso, and getting that result and knowing that, like, that is the work of that person dialing in that coffee earlier that morning, and then the roaster roasting that coffee, earlier that week, and then outside of that, the processor processing that coffee, months ago, and outside of that, the producer, picking that coffee and harvesting that coffee months before that too. And so there's a magic that happens inside of a cafe, and that's why I 100%, even if I have a day off and I want a cup of coffee, I either make my way to Wyatt's or any of the other awesome cafes that we have in town.
Mm-hmm.
How do you instill those values into your team? Because I think, like, I hear that, and I know, like, I can see y'all's passion and, like, this, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I hear, I'm like, man, that's so rich, and, like, I love it. And I'm like, but how do you get that person, you're not at the shop, how do you get that person who's serving it to, like, create that experience for that person?
That's a super great question, and that is almost 100% of my job.
Mm-hmm.
Like my role with Wyatt's, with the cafe, is sure in operations. I make sure everything's running smoothly day to day, but more specifically when it comes to education, specifically education with our staff, so much of our education really comes down to value alignment. It comes down to, let's make sure that we are on the same page when it comes to the way that we think about coffee, but then outside of just coffee specifically, the way that we think about experiences and what we want to create in the cafe, right? We live by 3 core values, not core values per se, but by 3 missions per se at the cafe. The first being, we want to create remarkable experiences for all of our guests. The second being, we want to serve absolutely amazing coffee. And the third one being, we want to love our community. And in loving our community, we want to love each other while we're here, right? We want to make this a fun work environment. And so everything centers around that first one, right? Creating a remarkable experience. Like, sure, you can serve a great cup of coffee, don't get me wrong, but unless there's a remarkable experience, unless there's something, I think it's like you say it, like the businesses that make you go, whoa, right? Like unless you leave that business and you want to go somewhere else and tell somebody about that experience you've had, in my opinion, you've done nothing. And so, to answer your question very specifically, like, how do we instill those values? It starts on day one. Part of what I believe is, like, so vital to any team is proper orientations, right? Proper times where they get to hear from an owner or a manager and understand, like, what they're expected to do, but not only what they're expected to do, but how the company thinks through things, right? How the company approaches problems, what the company believes, like, what are the values that we believe in? And in that orientation, most of it is just training on creating those remarkable experiences. The excitement comes with it. Everyone that works for us is excited about coffee. It just happens. You're stoked. You're sitting there. There's new coffees coming in every week. You get to taste everything. You're brewing it on espresso. You're brewing it on a pour over. So the excitement is natural, but what really creates the connection with the guest is that focus on creating that remarkable experience, that focus on taking someone that might not be knowledgeable at all about coffee and taking them to try this crazy Ethiopian coffee, or to try our Costa Rican coffee, which is crazy as well. Yeah.
Anything that you guys have done during this time of COVID when it comes to the customer experience? Because I look at, like, our business and everything that's happened this year and how the customer, I was literally commenting yesterday saying, I don't know, 70% of our team doesn't even know that we did celebration pictures, because we've had that turnover in this time and we used to, like, somebody buy a scooter, we'd ring a bell, celebrate, gather around the customer, take a big picture, and, like, really, like,
give them a Polaroid to send home.
Yeah, like 70% of our team doesn't even know that we've done that, because we've had that turnover in the last year, and you know what I mean? And so, I don't know, is there anything that you guys have done to, really pivot that experience during this time? Because you're really kind of, at least up to maybe a couple months ago, like, you're really missing out on the coffee house experience, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and even until today, it's still super weird.
Yeah.
I think I came in just after I think Gabe and his wife, during the midst of the thick of it, they were handling the situation pretty well, but it was just them for a while. And so they saw the most difficult parts of like the stay at home stuff, as far as like why it's staying open and stuff like that. But for me, I think going back to your previous question, like how do you get engagement and people excited about what you're doing, specifically your employees? For me, it's more of living as an example and a model. I don't really have to get excited about work because I already am. Like, I don't feel like I'm working, especially moving from like a desk job, a cubicle, like insurance for a couple of years, moving to this. It just, I don't know, it seems really organic. It's been just a lot of fun.
You're doing what you love, man.
Yeah.
Leading by example is everything.
Yeah.
Leading by example is absolutely everything. To go to your COVID question specifically about
sorry
creating,
about that.
No, you're good. I'm in agreement with you. It's been difficult, of course. It's kind of shifted. When you say that like 70% of your staff don't know what it's like to do kind of something that's maybe been traditional for you for years.
Right.
I feel that to the core, because even in, our cafes reopen right now at like 40% seating, a little under 40% seating. We have like very limited seats available at Wyatt's right now. Which is, it's been good, and it's helped business, and it's given people the opportunity to be able to sit down and hang out in a cafe and enjoy coffee the way, we want people to enjoy coffee. But it, throughout the whole process, it was always hard, but it was always like, whatever decision that we made, we needed to make sure that our mission, right, what we wanted to do and what we believe as a company was always in accordance with it. And so one of the first things that we did at the beginning, when we had when the shop itself was closed for seating, is that we started offering deliveries. And we came up with this idea of like, okay, delivering individual cups of coffee is hard. It's they're not going to come hot enough, or they're going to have all of the ice melted. You have to run around everywhere to make, $5, $10 at a time. It's not really worth for us to do that. We decided to do weekly bulk deliveries, and we would deliver 32 or 64 ounces of cold brew, or like batched out lattes or tea. We would deliver bags of coffee, and we would do delivery once a week. And we basically wanted to think through the delivery in our mission, right? And so first was, can we create a remarkable experience with this delivery? And I was like, absolutely, yes, we can. Are we going to serve our amazing coffee? Absolutely. Same processes, same quality. We're going to do that as well. Are we going to love each other? Because of the delivery, we were able to bring some of our staff back. We were able to have people employed. So I was like, absolutely. So we went off on this journey of like, how do we perfect the delivery? And I started studying like some of the giants, why does Domino's make you feel good when you order Domino's, right? They're in constant communication with you. And so we were like, all right, if we're going to do this, we're going to make sure that when we're delivering, we're shooting people texts, and we're like, hey,
right now.
we're on our way to you, or hey, we just dropped this off at your front door. Or even, for some people, like we would even call them and just be like, hey, hope you've been having a great day. Like, thank you so much for ordering and supporting local. Like, your coffee is right at your front door for you. We'll see you next week. And our demand for deliveries got so big that we had to start capping them. And we basically started doing, it ended up being about a 4.5 hour route through Gainesville, where we would just drive all the way up, all the way down. And we would do about a day and a half's worth of sales in a delivery route. And so it was crazy. And it was just one of those immediate moments where it's like, people are really liking this, once because it's convenient, but two, like it feels kind of like what it would feel like when you come into Wyatt's, right? It's still your same familiar baristas coming to your door and dropping off that coffee. There's still an element of human contact, not actual contact, but you understand what I'm saying. There's a call. And everyone's stoked. Everyone's super stoked about it. And so that was really exciting. That in and of itself, those deliveries in and of itself allowed me to be able to staff two of my staff members who we had previously had to like furlough for a moment there. And so that was incredible. Moving on after that, when we reopened our cafe for like walk-up ordering and stuff like that, one of the missions that we wanted is that we wanted people to feel absolutely safe, but we also wanted it to feel. We also wanted people to feel we wanted people to be inside of our shop. And so we actually set up like a little pickup station. In fact, Collin, I think you like Instagram live, like we like chatted for like a half second one of those days.
Yeah.
And I think I showed you like the little setup. We had like tables set up right at the front door, and people would walk into this tiny little like a little insert, and they would have their menus and anything else around them, and everything was fully contactless, and people loved it. And so basically kind of transitioning into the now moment that we're in, our focus is so wholeheartedly into like, how can we make sure that the people that are coming in, the people that are comfortable to come in, feel loved? And then how can we also make sure that people that don't want to come in, the people that, want to order online and maybe continue staying home, like can do that as well. And so we've actually even set up a fully contactless online ordering pickup station outside. And so if you order online, you don't even have to touch our door handle. You can pick it up right outside. Your order is ready for you typically within like 5 to 10 minutes from the time you order it. And so it's all about experience. It's all about how can we make sure that people feel loved? How can we make sure that we have the right experience for everyone, not just one kind of person?
Smart.
Sweet. So before we wrap up and give you guys a chance to get your information out there so our listeners can contact you and enjoy that experience, right? I want to give you a chance to tell me how pretentious I am and tell you about my home cup technique, and then I want to hear about Noe's because we did talk about that. So I'm proof that just because you can Google something and arm yourself with the tools doesn't mean that you're good at anything, right?
I don't know, YouTube.
Right, exactly. So I got really into this, pretend that I'm going to be good at drinking coffee, and I bought like a little, like I work for my coffee on the weekends, and I can only do it on the weekends because I have to work for it. I have a hand crank.
Yes.
Ceramic conical burrs that I sit there and just and it only gives you enough to do like maybe 1, maybe 2 cups, and I sit there and just do it as slowly as I can, right? You can adjust the grind on it so I can get an espresso grinder fine. And then I'll usually either do Italian press or French press. I have an AeroPress or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I roll with.
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah,
I'm really not.
And then I've recently tried to start doing and I would put quotes, if you're not listening, I'm doing air quotes, espresso through the AeroPress, which is a really kind of, I don't think it's actually espresso at all, but I try. Anyway, so that's what I do at home. Like I said, you can tell me that's pretentious, tell me that it's worth it, whatever. But tell me, and then tell me what your home technique is, Noe.
No, I think that's great. I mean, I think that's really awesome. Brewing coffee at home, whether it's on a rush or it's like an hour or so, like whatever time to yourself is a great experience. Like, I'm a dad, so my morning routine is usually just like one of those auto drip, just like a small basic brewer. I have my grinder, but whenever I have some time, I'll do one of these guys, the Kalita, the pour over. I also have like an AeroPress, Chemex, and I have a little attachment for the AeroPress to make espresso.
There's an attachment?
Yeah.
Prismo, is that what it's called?
There's like some small attachments.
Oh, I had no idea there's an attachment.
There's all sorts of stuff.
Gotta get on that, bro. Let's go.
Gotta get the fully submerged attachment.
Yeah.
Right.
Fully submerged.
So what is one quick tip that you can give to the listening audience that'll turn them, it'll heighten their home cup up just a little bit? Like, is it temperature? Is it technique? Is it, I mean,
Sure.
one quick home tip.
I have my coffee make mine. It makes the world of difference.
I would say high quality water. So either going to the store and getting some high quality filtered water or making it your own. There's some recipes out there for like distilled water with, we won't get too much into it, but high quality water.
Sephora Hills is fantastic. Let's just buy Sephora
Leave it
Hills
there.
at the store.
Okay.
High quality water and then a high quality coffee grinder. Those two things.
So it's about the grind. So if you were going to recommend, you'd say get the whole bean, grind it yourself.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We always cry just a tiny little bit whenever someone orders pre-ground coffee. It's just a tiny little tear.
Does it make that big of a difference? Because I think a lot of people might go that route and not know, how big of a difference that makes, right? But like that's a take-home difference for you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's not the end of the world, but
But I mean, you offer it because people buy it, and
Little tears nonetheless.
Right. But yeah, I mean that's good. That's
Well,
good.
it's the,
do have
it's the convenience side of it.
course.
I mean, I just want to pour it in. I don't want to grind it myself.
Yeah,
You're making
yeah.
me work. I gotta buy your coffee and then I gotta work.
But it's that little
What?
bit that heightens your cup, man.
I get it, but I don't want to work.
Little things.
I do have one final tip for
Yeah.
you to heighten your cup.
Sure. Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
You can use a power drill for your hand grinder.
Uh-huh.
Attach it to the hand
I
grinder.
never even thought about that for a second.
No more sore.
So is
arms.
speed a function of that? Because I always heard like you need to do it slow, but maybe that's not.
This episode. I
I'm just
swear.
thinking about your arms. You can-
Fully
Well, right, but again, I'm
slow.
going for the. It's like if speed is an enemy, then I'm doing it slow.
Drill it.
You
You
know.
can go slow.
yeah.
Oh, Colin's still in like middle school.
No, I'm not. Middle school at all. Stop it.
All right.
I'm having fun. Okay.
Wrap
we're-
us up. Tell our audience where they can reach out with you, where they can visit you. Obviously, get a part of that 40% seating, schedule a delivery, anything
Yeah,
like that.
sure. So as far as the resident side, our website's resident.coffee. That's and then our
www.resident.coffee.
Yep.
awesome.
And then the
.com.
Instagram is at Resident Coffee Co. I believe we have a Facebook as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Facebook
Just
for that.
Resident Coffee.
And then Gabe, what about the
Yeah,
Wyatts?
our shop is open at 202 Southeast 2nd Ave, Gainesville, Florida, 32601. You can follow us at Wyatt's Coffee on Instagram or order online at wyatt'scoffee.com.
Beautiful.
Boom.
I had fun. Did you have fun?
I had
Did
a
you learn
blast.
something?
No, I had a blast. I
I learned that I
making
don't
fun
have
of my
the-
middle school.
Yeah,
like,
well,
Woody.
hey, thanks for the coffee, guys.
Yeah,
was
of
great.
course.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be
yeah,
up all
really
night
excited.
now because I've
Allison will be happy that we have coffee back under our
this is
roof.
going home.
Oh, never mind. Allison, don't watch this.
Sorry.
You can order some at Resident Coffee.
That's right.
That's right. Well, let me wrap us up really quick. Hey, we want to give a special thanks to all the sponsors that make this happen. Please make sure if you would like to connect with our sponsors, go look at all of them. They're at whoagnv.com/sponsors. Special love to the entire team that makes this possible. And anything else, man? It's December 7th. We are, holidays are ahead. 2021's ahead. Everybody
right.
get excited.
Get excited.
Drink
We're
some coffee, get hyped.
3 weeks away from 2021. We thought we'd never get there, but here we are.
Let's go. This is the WHOA GNV podcast, the podcast for you businesses and individuals that make you go,
Whoa.
whoa. We'll see you later. Bye.
Nailed it.